Welcome on back to the 4th and 30 podcast. Glad to have. When am I going to stop saying podcast? Can we just change the name to 4th and 30 podcast? It'd help me out. Anyway, welcome on back to the 4th and 30 podcast. Glad to have you again with us this week. Week 4 just wrapped up in the NFL with Chargers and Raiders. See, if you don't say the city, if you just say the team, you can never get it wrong. With Chargers and Raiders last night after that lightning delay inside underneath a roof. So that was fun. But there were some decent games this weekend. Some teams won that definitely either probably shouldn't have or nobody expected to. But starting out on Thursday night, the Jaguars and Bengals. So Bengals are, granted, yes, you should always beat the Jaguars, but they're on a little bit of a roll right now. I mean, Joe Burrow's playing pretty darn good.
Bengals are kind of an enigma to me because they're 3-1. They look fairly good, but then they beat the Jags by 3, who is just the Jags are an absolute mess right now. So it's hard to tell. There's no doubt how good Joe Burrow is. He's got a great receiving core around him, and Joe Mixon's playing pretty well so far this year. I think offensive line and defense are going to be a big thing for the Bengals. The weapons are there on offense, but inexperience, and a few holes, offensive line, defense, hard to tell how far they can get. But they're a playoff team as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be happy of where they are, but an enigma to say the least. They beat the Vikings and beat the Steelers, and then beat the Jaguars by a field goal and lost to the Bears. So, does anybody know what the Bengals are right now? Really, no. I think they are what they are. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team by any means. They're probably going to win 7
If they were
games.
in the NFC West, I would say they were definitely a playoff team right now. But in the AFC North, with how brutal that is, or not the NFC West, the NFC East.
I was like, the NFC
No,
West is the best division of football.
their record's going to look even worse in the NFC West. In the NFC East, I think they'd be a really good team. In the AFC North, with the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns, it's they're hot right now, but it's going to be hard to maintain that.
Left out the division they would probably run away with, the AFC South.
Yeah,
The
true.
AFC South is a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, the thing about the Bengals, I mean, they're a sound team on both sides of the ball. They're good on offense, they're good on defense. They played the Steelers, and the Steelers didn't register one sack on them. First time in 74 games that happened, an NFL record. So they are a good team. But if you look at their schedule does get a lot tougher. They do get to play the Jets, so they will have at least 4 wins. They play the Lions, but they also have to play, the 49ers, everybody in the AFC North twice, one more against the Steelers. They play the Chiefs. So their schedule gets a lot tougher. They're a 2 seed right now. I definitely don't think you'll see them as a 2 seed at the end of the year. Maybe a wild card team. And, it's hard for a young team like that to keep it up the whole year, especially when your schedule gets harder. So I still think they're a year or 2 away, but the Bengals are definitely on the up and up and have a chance to become, pretty relevant in the next couple of years.
They have one against the Packers this week. We'll see how they do there.
Big game this week for them. If they win that, I think that punches their ticket as a legit team.
They've been winning the right games to be a wild card team, though. Yeah, you have that loss to the Bears thrown in there, but when you string together multiple good wins in a row, so Steelers is a good win, Vikings is a good win. Those are, that screams wild card team at the end of the year. Now, granted, the AFC is probably going to be pretty loaded when it comes to who's getting into the wild card this year. But I do think they have, that outside shot. I wouldn't be afraid to put, some money down on them to make the playoffs because they've got that outside shot. So yes, it's going to get hard. You've got the Browns twice, Ravens twice, Steelers twice. That's rough, and that's your division. So I definitely see your point. But they are, they do have a legitimate outside shot to get the wild card.
Well, and we say they've beat 2 1-3 teams, but out of all the 1-3 teams, I would say 2 of the best teams out of those would be the Vikings and Steelers. Just looking at it like that. So
they also lost to the worst 2-2 team, probably though too.
Yeah, so their next 4 games is Packers, Lions, Ravens, Jets. So, they could conceivably come out of that at 5-3, at worst. And so, I mean, you're cooking with oil there.
Then you got Browns, Raiders, Steelers, Chargers,
Yeah,
49ers,
I just said
Broncos,
next
Ravens,
4, bud.
Chiefs.
That was
It
a
gets real hard after that.
strategic cutoff on the schedule there.
Playing the politics.
All righty. Well, you shake with this hand, you reach for the wallet with the other.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on down the list. We'll go ahead and knock this one out. Chiefs and Eagles. So yeah, the Chiefs' offense looked great, but the Chiefs' defense made the Eagles' offense also look pretty damn good. Kelsey, what are some of your thoughts on that game?
I mean, you hit it you hit the nail on the coffin. Hit the nail on the head. You know what I was going for there. The Chiefs look more like the 2018 Chiefs than the 2019 or 2020 Chiefs right now. Their offense is unstoppable like it has been the last 3 years, but their defense looks like a dumpster fire. They're gonna have to get it straightened out. I still think, regardless, with how bad their defenses look, they could be anywhere from 1-3 to 4-0 right now. So I mean, they're going to compete even with a bad defense, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl with the defense they have now. Their defense is going to have to get some things figured out.
Yeah, Carl did hit the nail on the head there, but the Chiefs' defense might also be the nail in the coffin for this. They look really, really bad at times. When it comes to schemes and coaching and all that, it's hard to say what the problem is, but they don't tackle. Like, that's the problem, is they don't tackle well. I haven't looked it up because I want, never know where the conversation is going to go. But I would like to know what the Chiefs' yard after contact is, or against them. It seems
I'll tell you this. Coming into last week, Daniel Sorensen had 9 missed tackles, and next most in the NFL was like 6 or something like that. I don't know about after last week, but that just gives you a hint of it. The NFL is terrible at tackling right now, honestly. It's a league-wide problem, but the Chiefs, it's very evident on.
It just seems like at times the Chiefs will have somebody walled off, and you're going to hold them to 0 or 1 yard, and then they just bust through the line and rattle off 10 to 15 yards. So the Chiefs got to get that figured out. I don't know if it's personnel, the scheme they're doing, or whether it's just inability by the players. But if they don't get something figured out on defense, you're gonna win your games against Raiders, Broncos, some of the other teams they're going to play. But like with the Chargers, when they play the Bills come playoff time, the Ravens, teams like that, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, like I said, they can still win games with this defense. That's how good this offense is, but they're making it way too difficult on themselves right now. All the defense has to be is decent. If the defense is decent, they're as dangerous as a team as there is, but the defense is not decent right now.
Yeah, I mean, Chiefs defense has got to get better. I mean, when you compete at a level like they have the last couple years, one of these years is it's inevitable. It's going to happen, and there's no stopping it. And, their defense can get some things figured out, but it just almost seems like when you have reached the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, been in the AFC Championship 3 years in a row, you're kind of spoiled and you expect great things, and they're not giving a great effort on defense right now. And it's surprising, but I mean, there's a lot of season left. We know their offense is going to keep them in it, so their defense has plenty of time to get right. I mean,
yeah. So, speaking of spoiled and stuff, been a Chiefs fan since I was short, like this big. But, this next Sunday when they play the Bills is the first time that I'm expecting them to lose in quite a few years. Like, literally going into the game like they're going to lose this game. I haven't had that thought in a very, very long time. And yeah, they could still win it. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying that, like, that feeling of, hey, we're not in a good spot right now. The Bills are going to come in and beat us. I haven't had that. Anybody we've played over the past few years is like, we could beat them. Yeah, we might lose, but we could beat them. It's just different this time. It doesn't feel like they're clicking quite as hard as they've been over the past few years. So it's just different,
On the bright side, the offense is The offense, which was everyone knew was good. If you look at the numbers, the first 4 weeks, they've been by far the best offense in the NFL, other than maybe the Bills. I was looking at some of the EPA stats, and the Chiefs are over here, and the next closest team is right here. Like the Chiefs' offense is clicking on all cylinders, other than giving the ball away 4 times. Their offense is insane right now, but the
Your
defense,
Cardinals are pretty high on some of those EPAs too.
yeah, they are.
But
Hey, I have
speaking
some.
of,
Hey, actually, hold on. You brought that up. So I had a fan reach out to me last night, and it was a request. They want you to look into the camera and say, "I was wrong about the Cardinals. They will make the playoffs."
confirm the fan.
John Stoneburner wants you to look into the camera and say, "I was wrong about the
His
Cardinals.
power
They will
ranking
make the
doesn't
playoffs."
say anything better about the Cardinals hardly. What'd you still? You had them barely top 10, didn't you? 8
No,
or
he had him
something?
fifth.
5?
Fifth,
Oh.
and fifth, yeah.
John Stoneburner can kiss my ass. How about that?
There you have it. You heard it here first, John.
Very good. No, I'm not going to give up on that. So, if you guys want to say the Bears are going to Bear, the Raiders are going to Raider, the Cowboys are going to Cowboys, what has the Cardinals organization ever done? Nothing.
Made one Super Bowl.
They handed the
All right, and
Steelers
they
the
lost
Super Bowl in 2009.
So they haven't done shit. So I'm not going to just bow down to them. Yeah, you heard me right. I'm not just going to
I
bow
was
down
talking
to
about Kelsey.
He was looking
It's-
at me.
It's it's week 4. Week 4 just got over. And that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to post that current playoff standings in the chat, because that's not going to look yes, a lot of the teams on that are going to change, as including the Cardinals. So yeah, the Cardinals could probably slip into the wild card or something, but I'm telling you, they are overblown right now. So yeah, they have a very good win against the Rams, sure, but you missed a kick to the Vikings. You're 3-1. So
That can be said about
I
any
just-
NFL team.
yeah, but I'm just saying, they're not who you guys think they are. They're playing good football right now,
See,
but
this
they're
is
not
where
a championship
this is where we
team.
always disagree about power rankings. Is I'm more with you, Carl. They're not going to win the division. I think they probably get in as a wild card because they look better than I thought they would. But they are a top 3 team in the NFL today. Right now, they're a top 3 team. They won't be week 17 or week 18, I guess. But
I think it's really all up to you how you do your power rankings. It's not standings. It's power. It's how good is this team. I put them at number 1 because they're the only undefeated team left. But I could see a world in which they drop down to number 10 by the end of the year. So
I'm hoping for 12. I really didn't want to move them off 12 just to piss you guys off. I just couldn't not do it. Anyway, move on. Do we need to talk about Washington and the Falcons?
No.
Didn't think so.
Let's just hit
Washington's
on
a
the good
dumpster
ones.
fire. I do want to remind everyone, Cody and Kyler were certain before the season started that Washington was going to win that division.
we're only 4 games in,
Hey,
bud.
No,
They
so
were
Washington.
certain
hey,
of it.
what was Washington's record last year at about week 10?
What was their
1-7?
final record?
Yeah.
6-10. That's
And
not
they
going to
won
win
the
the division
division.
this year.
7-9, I thought. But anyway, yeah, no, that is kind of a surprise though. The Washington's
I
defense is
mean,
playing
Washington's
that
in the
poorly.
playoffs right now. If the season ended, they are in the playoffs.
They won't be though. We all know
I'm
that.
just-
They look terrible.
They're in the playoffs right now, so our prediction wasn't that far off. Let me just throw that out there.
Oh, boy.
Bills blank the Texans. The Davis Mills experience is not going well.
So
Yeah.
the Tyrod Taylor thing was a fluke, too.
Yeah, the good luck Chuck thing did not work for Davis Mills. Not saying it won't work for the next person they draft. It could
They
be,
have-
after.
They have the guy it can work for. He's sitting at their 4th quarterback spot.
They have the guy that they could get more draft picks for and draft whoever the hell they want.
Well,
is
that's
what's happening.
fine. Trade him then. I
Okay.
don't understand why you just let him
Davis
sit there.
Davis Mills probably isn't going to work out. If only they had another quarterback to throw in there. If only they had one more
If
guy.
only
on
there
the
was a
bench.
guy. I don't know. A guy who's torn up the league time and time again.
But credit to the Bills, though. So the Texans, they're still professional football players. They've showed that. They gave the Browns a good run there in the first half a couple weeks ago. They're still, professional football players. And the Bills have blanked 2 teams so far this year. And that's not easy to do in the NFL. And to do it twice in 4 weeks is pretty damn impressive. So the Bills' defense is definitely on one right now. And, Josh Allen has that offense working at the moment. So I mean, the Bills are strong here to start off this season. They look like real serious. They're serious about what they're doing this year
Yep.
for sure.
Almost like somebody said they'd be in the Super Bowl this year, but
Yeah, they've come a long way since losing to the Steelers.
You and half of ESPN.
Yeah, yeah, like everybody said the Bills were in the Super Bowl. The only
I
thing
said it
is
before it was cool.
the Bills have looked great, but they've also played the Dolphins, the football team, and the Texans, 3 inept offenses. So their defense probably is not the best defense in the NFL, but their defense, what we thought was gonna be weak, is a lot better than we thought they were gonna be, for sure.
I mean, really, football team's doing okay for having an XFL quarterback playing for them.
As Fitzpatrick wouldn't have been much different.
Well, Washington's problem isn't their offense; it's their defense
Yeah,
hasn't really
their
stepped
defense
up.
has been
So
terrible.
they've been scoring some points.
All
There
right,
was
Kai, any thoughts on the Bills?
I mean, they look to be, them and they honestly look stronger than the Cardinals, but they dropped week 1 to Pittsburgh. Kind of a surprise, but I mean, when you win NFL games by this many points that they're winning, it's not, I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive. 40-0, you just don't see that in the NFL. It's early, and they look to be in midseason form. There will be some other teams that get into midseason form later on in the year and catch up to the Bills, but the Bills have to be one of your favorites.
I was really happy when Carl's rankings put the Bills at 1 and the Cardinals at 2, because now it's gonna be 4 straight weeks the number 1 team gets knocked off.
And my rankings put the Cardinals at 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you had
you
them
had the
number
Cardinals at
5,
5. You were the one that had the Cardinals so
drop their
low and
average.
dropped their average
Oh.
down. So the Bills leaped them and got to 1, and our
Well,
number
you're
1 has
welcome
lost
then.
3 straight weeks, so now
I'm
it's gonna be 4
saving this
straight
podcast one power rankings at a time, Kelsey.
weeks.
Doing the Lord's work.
I was happy
Anyway,
about it.
gonna skip
There's
Bears
about
and
3 games
Lions.
in a row to skip.
Cowboys whoop the hell out of the Panthers. The Colts beat the Dolphins, no surprise. Browns Vikings in a low scoring game. So yeah, I know Stefanski came out of the coaching tree there. What's that guy for the Vikings? What's his name? Zimmer came out of the Zimmer coaching tree, so they're going to share some stuff. But the Browns really just shoved it down the Vikings' throat all day. They just ran the ball. But for that low scoring of an affair, that was kind of surprise. It surprised me that game went so far under. Did that surprise anybody else?
I was very surprised. I mean, the Vikings offense has been one of the top offenses in the NFL this year, and the Browns went into Minnesota and shut them down. So I think looks good for the Browns. However, the only question you still have about the Browns is, can they score enough points? Their offense is good. They run the ball well, but the Vikings don't have a great defense, and the Browns did not really punish them. So that's concerning for the only really concerning part for the Browns. But you got to love what their defense did on the road.
Yeah, I think we all kinda like the Vikings even though they're 1 and 2. We thought they were better than their record. But if the Browns go in there and basically shut the Vikings offense down, you expect that to be a blowout, and somehow the Browns couldn't pull away at all.
Fun side note about that game. That was the first game in a long time that Myles Garrett hasn't worn sleeves, and he got drug tested Monday morning.
Yeah. There's a
Saw
picture of
that.
him with no sleeves on.
Yeah.
He said, "Yep, I got drug tested the day after the game."
Yeah, it is fun when stuff like that happens. Like Ezekiel Elliott got pictures taken in a weed shop, and here's your random drug test the
Yep.
next day.
Yep.
Super random. Saints Giants. Damn it. Yeah. So
You're holding out hope, though, Carl.
I am still holding out hope for the Saints.
4 weeks.
I still think the Saints. I dropped them. I still think the Saints are better than what they showed. Losing to the Giants is inexcusable. There's zero excuses for that. They had multiple opportunities to ice that game. They were up by, 10 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, you just can't can't lose a game like that to one of the bottom tier teams in the league. But you know, it is what it is. You did lose, so you move on, and so their schedule is going to get tougher because you can't play teams like the Giants very often. But I still do think they're better than what they've showed. But I am, cooling on them a little bit. But I'm still not going to be surprised when they make noise coming through the NFC South, probably into the wild card. So
They just don't have an identity on offense. Michael Thomas can help that if he can get back, but I just don't know what they even want to do they just want to run Kamara 25 times a game and hope that it works out. I don't know.
Target him 10 times in the past game, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely have the potential to get it going. I mean, Winston has all the tools. They have a good running back. I think, the Saints fall into that line of teams that, like you said, they don't have an identity yet, but later on the season could come into midseason form and be a contender. They have the defense, they have the talent. It's just not there yet. And the Giants are a bottom tier team, but it seems like they do this. They sometimes randomly just play up to the level of their competition. And Daniel Jones, he had the one, bad week, but you look at Daniel Jones' numbers, and that guy is kind of balling. He threw for 400 yards against the Saints. Not many quarterbacks have done that.
Daniel
over the
Jones
past
has
couple
been
years.
fairly impressive so far this year.
So even though the Giants are 1-3, I think the Giants have a chance to be better than the record suggests. I really do. I mean,
I more so lean to the side that the Saints aren't aren't a wild card team. But here's the thing. So if they close that game out against the Giants, just hypothetically, they close that out. They're 3-1. Their only loss is to the Panthers, who are 3-1, right?
yeah.
3-1. And then they beat the Patriots by 15, who the Patriots just gave the Bucks all they wanted in a game. Now, granted, that is one of those games. It was going to be a tight game, even if it was the Texans and the Bills. Like, it was going to be a tight game just because of what was on the line with Brady and Belichick and all that stuff. But, I mean, one game, one more touchdown there in that game against the Giants. They're 3-1, and this could be a whole different narrative. But we'll just have to see.
yeah, I think the
They play
Saints, to Kelsey's point, they don't have an identity on offense, and that's partly because you've had Drew Brees there for so long. That was this dink and dunk screen pass guy, and so on 3rd and 6, he was going to get you that 6 because he, threw for 70% completion percentage a lot of years. Like, he was going to get you those 6 yards. He wasn't necessarily going to get you into the end zone every time, but he would extend drives, and that's all the Saints needed there in the fourth quarter was extending drives. And they didn't need a 15-yard pass. They needed those 4 to 6 yard passes just to get first downs and kill the clock. And that was something they missed, and I'm sure it's something that Sean Payton, is still kind of adjusting to, not having that, super accurate short thrower that he was used to having for so many years. So hopefully they do get that figured out.
They have a game at Washington this Sunday. They better win that one if they want to be a playoff team.
So should Washington.
Yeah, apparently Washington's going to be a playoff team too.
Both teams honestly should probably try to win that game.
Two teams that we had people very high on in this podcast that haven't looked especially great so far in the season. But there's a lot of season left.
Yeah. Alrighty. Titans Jets in a shit show. Cardinals Rams. So Cardinals beat the Rams like a drum. I'm not gonna deny that. The Rams could not get it done. What did they got down to the into the red zone 5 times and didn't score or some stuff like that. Like, you can't do that against anybody in the NFL, regardless who you're playing. You can't get to the red zone 5 times and not score. Just can't do that.
Yeah, and those games happen, especially in division games. Like, I'm not writing the Rams off after one loss. I've, obviously moved them off the number 1 spot in my power rankings, but I mean, they're coming off some big wins. They're due for a letdown week. And, the Cardinals went in there and they put it to them, so credit to the Cardinals. But I think the Rams will learn from this experience. Losses sometimes can be good for teams like the Rams, especially when you start out that hot. And, the Rams are still a contender in my eyes. It was just kind of one of them weeks for them where they just didn't get it done.
Is Rams Seahawks Thursday night football this week?
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Man, that's a good Thursday night
It's a
game for
quick
once.
turnaround for those guys
Yep.
after both playing division games.
Yep.
Yeah, but at least it's in LA.
Are the Rams
Right.
at
in
home
Seattle.
every week? Do
It's
they
in
just play at
Seattle.
SoFi
It's in
every week?
Seattle.
Okay.
It's in Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's rough for the
But
Rams.
the Seahawks are coming off a big win, so I mean, they could easily have a letdown.
Is it that big a win though?
Well,
Every
I don't know.
every division win's a big win.
But
Especially
the
in
beginning
that
of that game, it
division.
looked like then the beginning of that game it looked like the Niners were going to run away with it too. So I would consider it a big win. The Seahawks ended up running away with it.
Do you
Good
think
week.
Garoppolo's going to be out long with that calf?
I would venture to say if he is out much longer, he won't come back. Because while Trey Lance didn't look especially great, he also didn't look as like people think Trey Lance is a wild card and Garoppolo's more steady of a quarterback, but Lance didn't make any mistakes and Garoppolo's made a few mistakes this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't just if he's out for a game or two, if they don't just stick with Trey Lance.
Trey Lance is going to have to play really good for them. I mean, Garoppolo took him to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. People forget that. And
Well, this is
Kyle
Garoppolo's last season.
Shanahan did not forget that. I can assure you. Trey Lance is going to have to really play good for them to stick with Trey Lance.
I mean, they drafted Trey Lance for a reason. This is Garoppolo's last season, regardless. They might say, "Yeah, we should keep him this season," but Garoppolo's done after this year in San Francisco.
Alrighty. The Ravens whooped the Broncos in the Broncos' first real game of the year. I don't think that really surprised very many folks.
I'm sure there's
No.
some Broncos fans holding on to the fact that Drew Lock had to come into that game and look just like you would expect Drew Lock to look. But the Broncos weren't moving the ball before Lock came in either. Their offense looked terrible, like I think most people expect them to look. I don't know.
So Teddy Bridgewater, the first 3 weeks of the year, had faced some of the most pressure that any quarterback had faced, and he was still getting the job done. That's not, to me, that is not sustainable over the course of a year. And, they got away with it against the Giants. They got away with it against the Jets. You, however, do not get away with that against the Ravens or some of the other top-notch teams. So Broncos were brought back down to earth, and, they looked like more of the team I think we predicted them to be.
Yeah.
Bridgewater before going out was 7 for 16 for 65 yards. That's even worse than I thought he was.
I think we all know and love a Broncos fan somewhere in our life, but I mean, it is what it is, Broncos fans. We still hold you near and dear, but that's what your team is.
I just don't understand. Even in Kansas City, they've been saying, and we don't want the Broncos to be good, but why don't they just draft another quarterback? Drew Lock is not it. Like, just draft somebody. Just take your losses and draft somebody. Quit trying to figure out some other plan. It's time to move on. Drew Lock's not the guy.
You're not that guy, pal.
And they have a decent team other than the quarterback.
Their O-line's struggling. Their
O-line's a lot worse this year than it was last year.
Alrighty. Steelers and Packers. Kai, why don't you unpack that game for us?
Okay, well, I'll just say this because if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, you can't tell in the points. The Steelers' offense looked 100 times better than it has. There was some fluidity to their offense. Najee averaged over 4 yards a carry. Najee Harris is going to be an absolute stud. That is one positive that we have going for us. But the amount of improvement that I saw in that offense just from the first 3 weeks to last week leaves you with a little bit of hope for their season. Obviously, this week's a must-win for them, but I mean, the first 3 weeks of the season was bad. I mean, the offensive line everything was bad. The offensive line played pretty good this week, and Big Ben looked rattled. He looked like he'd been seeing demons in his sleep for the last 8 weeks, like he has. And I would hope that during the week in film that they recognize that, because he's got to be confident. He's got to stand back there in the pocket and make those throws. And if he's not wanting to do that and not willing to stand back there and take some hits and do that, then it's time to hang it up. But I think they're going to see that in film this week, and I think it's going to keep getting better. You know, they're 1-3, but they got the Broncos at home. You win these next two, you go into your bye week 3-3. There's still a little bit of a chance in Pittsburgh. I may be a fan, you guys might disagree, but they still have a good defense, and if their offense can start putting some points on the board, they can stick up. They can compete with some of these teams.
I think the Steelers are the best 1-3 team in the league. They've got a big win against the Bills, who are just dominating everyone. Week 1, a lot of things can happen week 1. They've lost to the Raiders, Bengals, and Packers, who I believe if it ended right now would all be playoff teams, right?
Yes.
So I think week 17, whether the Steelers make it in or not, may not look as good if the Bengals end up 6-11 and the Raiders end up 6-11. But you know, if both those teams end up squeaking in the playoffs like they would be right now, you know, playing at the level they're at right now, the Raiders have looked good. The Bengals have looked good. The Packers, outside of week 1, have looked really good. It's been a tough stretch so far. They've got the Broncos, Seahawks, and then they've got Browns and then Bears and Lions. So, you know, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5 here in the next couple weeks can get the ball rolling. But they got to start going because it doesn't get any easier after that.
This week is a must win. Last week, Carl, you said about the Chiefs, you're going into this week thinking you're going to lose that game. You know, I kind of felt that way last week. But we've said it since the beginning, this offense is a work in progress. For the first time this year, you did see strides in that offense. And that's about what they have to. It's not much, but it's what they have to go off of. And for them, you got to hope to sneak in the playoffs. That's all you can hope for at this point.
So I hate
Yeah,
to
but
be the rain
if-
on the parade, but the reason why the Steelers' offense looked better this week is because the Packers' defense is abysmal right now. Gave up 38 to the Saints, 17 to the Lions, 28 to the 49ers, and then 17 to the Steelers. I think it's more about who you were playing than the offense looking especially great. I don't know what the question is, honestly. The Steelers aren't going to be a playoff team this year. Their offense is terrible right now.
It actually would be better for the Steelers long term to not make the playoffs this year, so that way they can just kind of reset mentally a little bit. Because if they, you know, let's run that out and say they do go 9-8 and sneak into the 7 spot of the wild card or something, that everybody's going to be like, oh well, you know, still work. Big Ben, you want to come back another year? Tomlin, you
back
want to come
another
back
one.
another year? Like it's like, come on, guys.
Run it back.
At a certain point, you have to kind of like redo. And like that's the problem. It's hard to redo something when it's not exactly broke, but it's not getting you there. Like, you know, you're a great, just let's get into the playoffs and then we're gonna lose. But like, great team. That's what Pittsburgh's done for 10 years now, and they've been very good at it. But it's just something's eventually got to change, and I think not making the playoffs this year would actually be a good thing for the Steelers organization.
So here's what came across my mind today. Kai, being the fan of the Steelers, GM or head coach, whatever you are for the Steelers, do you pick up Cam Newton right now? You don't think he's a better option than Big Ben?
I don't. I mean, that's not saying much right now, but no, I don't think Cam
I don't think
Newton-
it's clear cut. You know, I'm not a Steelers fan, so I don't have a
Here's the
honest
deal.
opinion.
Just going to what Carl said. So you pick Cam Newton up to be I mean, what's he going to take you to? 9-8.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
At that point, it's better to just at least finally get a top 15 draft pick rather than go 9-8 and get a 20th draft pick for the 15th straight year or worse.
You know what the Steelers need to do is trade for Deshaun Watson.
You know, I've been thinking that, and I haven't said it because I'm not giving up on Big Ben. I'm not. I
Dude,
still
it's
think
time
they
to
have
give
a
up.
small shot this year.
You could
He has
put your
to
feet
go.
in the water with giving up on Big Ben. Go get Gardner Minshew for like a 3rd rounder or something to just kind of like test it out a
So
little
what
bit.
they could
you know, see
do
where you're at.
is like that guy on Twitter said, they could give up Big Ben for a 1st and a 3rd rounder, and then package that 1st and 3rd rounder to Houston for
The
Deshaun.
Texans might.
Houston are the ones who are going to give him the 1st and 3rd rounder, though. Remember, that's
They're
the
going to
only
give
team
him
that-
Deshaun Watson on top of it.
So I'm not trying to pile on you, but you didn't like where I was at with Ben at the beginning of the season, and he's worse than I thought he would be. He's looked terrible this year.
He has, but I've still got hope.
He's been stumbling for his life though. So all right. How the great return, Tom Brady's return to New England in a rainy, sloppy mess of a game. It was kind of cool to see that. It's always kind of cool when somebody goes back. So I know Cody's not a Tony Parker fan, but when he came back to San Antonio, that was kind of neat to see.
You talking about that French lady that played point guard for the Spurs forever?
Yeah. When Jordan, played in Chicago, when he was in Washington D.C. That kind of stuff is fun to see.
LeBron went back to Cleveland and then back to Miami and then back to Cleveland. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you notice, everybody I said stayed with the team long term and then left. Nobody was. Anyway, so that stuff is fun to see. Tom Brady did not hang as much on the Patriots as I thought he would. So definitely did not see that game going under. But, Tom Brady made it happen late in the fourth quarter, like he always does. And yeah, the Patriots missed a kick, but, Tom Brady came out on top. So he's beaten all 32 teams in the NFL, the fourth quarterback to ever do it, which is impressive. But
I don't even know how many times I've said this in all the episodes we've talked about football. When it comes to the Belichick-Brady argument, I'm on the Brady side of the argument. And it really chapped my ass to see everyone in New England show Brady so much love. And Belichick didn't speak poorly on Tom at all in the press conferences and stuff, but you could tell everything he said was just a little bit backhanded, just a little. He, instead of going into detail about how great Tom was, he would just say, "Oh yeah, Tom's great. We've seen it before. Tom's great." And then after the game, everyone shows Brady all the love, all his former teammates, the front office for the Patriots. And Belichick just walks up, gives him a hug, and before Tom is even done embracing him, Belichick turns and walks away. And I know that's part of his personality.
Oh.
I get all that, but that just chapped my ass. I was glad to see Brady go in there and win, even though they probably shouldn't have won the game. But
So Belichick didn't want to show this, but he had a 20-minute meeting with Tom after the game. He went into the Tampa Bay locker room and talked to Tom.
Well,
I
did not know that, so I stand corrected.
He didn't want it to be in the public side. That's why, because that's just how Belichick is. But yeah, he went in. I think he felt
what do you
bad.
think they were doing in there?
Honestly, what are they doing for 20
I
minutes?
never know what they're doing in there.
Mom, the meatloaf.
I think it was cool. I think Tom Brady got to play against the defense that kind of carried him for all those years, and Patriots defense held up pretty good. Just kidding, but the Patriots more about the game really. The Patriots played pretty tough. The Patriots seem to be coming along a little bit. They did just lose to the Saints, but they're a year away. But I mean, Belichick, you would have thought he had a defensive game plan for Brady after playing him. He did. Brady came out on top like he always does. But he really didn't have that great of a game against.
Yeah, so I was actually really surprised. I was going to say that. Obviously, you guys know where I stand on the debate. I would pick Brady over Belichick if I had to start a team 10 out of 10 times. But Bill showed once again why, when he knows a guy, he knows how to scheme against him, because he made it very difficult on Tampa Bay. He did. And one thing I've not liked at the beginning of the season is the clock mismanagement by so many teams. The Chargers did against the Chiefs by scoring that touchdown. Brady, I expected to try and run the clock down. He throws 2 passes to the end zone on 2nd and 3rd and 8. Then the Patriots don't even try, and which they didn't score anyway, but they didn't even try and keep the ball away from Tom. Like, those 2 teams, especially with Tom and Bill, you expect clock management to be on top. And both of them mismanaged the clock at the end of the game horribly. I mean, it didn't end up mattering for Tom. They won anyway. I think Tom just wanted to have a chance to come back and score at the end of the game to say he did it, but I don't know.
No, so I definitely did not expect that. So Bill Belichick is good at what he does. He's good at game planning and stuff, but it also wasn't a very good weather game to be a quarterback. But that being said, I think Mac Jones is putting together the most impressive rookie season of the rookie QB so far. He's
Yeah, I
he's
don't even
been
think it's a
very,
question.
very consistent. And he just seems he had a couple
He's
miscues
been
there early.
he's been efficient, I think is the right
Yeah.
word for him. Very efficient.
Yeah, I've said this to a couple people actually. I don't know that he'll be the best quarterback or anything out of this class, but he's putting together the best year this year. He's
Yeah.
been very smart with the ball, been very good with the ball for the Patriots.
He has the chance to be the most consistent, just that
Yeah.
3,800, 4,100 yards, 23 to 7 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Like just right there where you can kind of compete, but you're not going to compete for a title. Like I can see him being in that ballpark.
So I have a conspiracy theory. Did Brady throw, or did Belichick have Mac Jones throw so much to try and prove that he could replace Tom Brady? Because they ran the ball like what 7 times, or it was less than 10 times. I'm pretty sure in the entire game. Did he just
Uh,
throw so much because he wanted to try and prove that?
for whatever reason, nobody's really trying to run the ball on the Buccaneers defense. Like everybody's staying away from that front and spreading them
Yeah,
out and throwing
which
them
is
the ball.
smart. Which is smart. Their front is impressive.
And their
Yeah.
secondary is banged up.
8 rushes for -1 yards.
Yeah,
They
they
didn't
threw
start
the
Damian
ball a lot in
Harris.
that game.
All right. And then the last game of week 4 was the Chargers shellacking of Las Vegas. So what do we have in that one, fellas?
It looked like it was going to be a 42-0 kind of Bills-Texans kind of game to start. Derek Carr came alive, and the Raiders looked better in the second half. But Chargers are good. Raiders are not bad. Game got a little interesting at the end. It was 21-14 at one point in time, and the Raiders had the ball, but Chargers ended up closing it out.
Yeah, the Raiders definitely made it interesting. The Raiders can't keep playing like this though. They've been down 14 points or more in 3 of their 4 games. Like that's a recipe
Why they
for
won 2
disaster
of them in
every time.
overtime.
Yeah, like they've got to come out. They've got to learn how to play in the first half. You can't go down 14 points again in every game
Yeah.
and expect to win.
Carr's not going to be able to bail you out every game like that. I think honestly, the main difference between there's 2 differences between these 2 teams that make the Chargers better. One is Austin Eckler. It's time to give that guy his respect. I mean, that dude is just small. He's short but stocky, shifty between the tackles. Can also run outside. Very tough to bring down because he's short. I mean, and if he stays healthy, he's what puts that offense over the top. We all know they can throw the ball to the outside. Secondly, their defense has playmakers, and they make plays. And they had an interception. Thank God they had an interception so I could win my fantasy week. But the Chargers are starting to come along, and I said last week they needed to finish drives. They finish drives. If they start finishing drives, we know they're going to move the ball. If they start scoring touchdowns in the red zone, this is going to be a very tough team to beat, and especially if their defense continues to make plays like that. It's a scary combo.
I'll touch more on the Chargers in a
The only
Alright.
thing I would say about the Chargers, and the Chargers look great, but the only thing I would say about them is they lost to the Cowboys. The Chiefs the 2 teams that they've played that are probably playoff teams, they should have lost both the games. They didn't. They beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs turned the ball over 4 times, but they probably should have lost to the 2 playoff teams that they've played so far. The Raiders might make the playoffs, but they're not the Chiefs or the Cowboys, I don't think. Um, they've got to win those if they want to be considered one of the top teams in the AFC, they've got to be able to beat teams like that.
Before we do week 5, I wanted to gauge where some of you guys are at. So I know in a regular season, 4 games, we'd be a quarter of the way through. Fractions don't work very well when there's 17 involved, but we're a quarter of the way through is what we're going to call it. So what's been your guys' biggest surprise this year? As in-depth as you want to be, as not in-depth as you want to be. What's been your biggest surprise so far?
Well, I'll just circle right back around to what I said a minute ago. My biggest surprise is the Chargers. I think everyone knew they would be good. They'd be better a year under Herbert, new coach, but they are scary good. Like the point of I'm not confident I still think the Chiefs will win the division, but I'm not confident the Chiefs will win the division. The Chargers are really, really good. Justin Herbert is unbelievably good. He's already making his case for top 10, top 5 kind of guy in the league that has tons of great quarterbacks right now. That's my biggest surprise. I thought they'd be good. They're a great team right now.
Yeah, my biggest surprise so far is just the AFC West in general. The Raiders starting out hot. The Broncos, granted they didn't play anybody, started out hot. So, you know, for the Chiefs to be sitting in fourth place through 4 weeks in the AFC West is surprising when the Chiefs are still the odds-on favorite to win the AFC West. So, that was a very big surprise for me so far, is how well the AFC West has played against any of the competition thrown at them. So,
I think my biggest surprise, I haven't stuck on this grave quite as hard as you, Carl, but before the season, I was telling Kyler that I think the Saints could be a playoff team, and they still very well can, but their inability on offense has been my biggest surprise. I thought that I told Kyler last year that they should have put Winston in for Breeze at one time because Breeze couldn't get the ball downfield. Now I'm eating those words because clearly Breeze was Breeze for a reason. I just that the Saints might have one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now. They're that bad on offense, and I didn't see that coming at all.
Winston can get the ball down there. It's just whether there's somebody to catch it or not. It's turned out to be the
Wearing the right
problem.
color jersey.
Yeah.
He hasn't thrown that many picks this year. Lay off.
So my biggest surprise this year so far is the Cowboys, and here's why. Because their defense was abysmal last year. Their defense is hanging in there this year. They're forcing turnovers. They're one of the tops in the league in plus turnover, plus minus. Secondly, they're back to running the football. They're second in the league in rushing yards, which, if you think back 3 years ago when they were at their best, it was running the ball, doing play action. They've gotten back to that. Their defense has improved. They have a good pass rush. I'm not surprised that the Cowboys are 3-1. I'm kind of surprised, but I'm more surprised with how they've done it. I mean, they've handled a couple teams. They were in there on opening. Nobody beats the defending champs on opening night, and they were right there. So I'm just impressed with how the Cowboys have done it, and it looks sustainable to me.
Yeah, right now they look like there's 4 or 5 good teams in the NFC, but they look like they're definitely one of them, for sure.
Yeah, so biggest disappointments. I'll go ahead and start this one. My biggest disappointment is the Vikings. So yeah, they're 1-3, but there's an overtime loss to the Bengals in there. There's a missed field goal versus the Cardinals in there. Then they shellacked the Seahawks, and then lost to the Browns. They did lose to the Browns. Low scoring game, but they did lose to the Browns. So literally 2 plays is preventing them from being 3-1 versus 1-3. And I just think it's turning out to be Kirk Cousins is the new Phillip Rivers, and he's just going to lose a lot of these one-score games and just, always the bridesmaid, never the bride type deal. Which, yeah, Kirk Cousins has his faults for sure, but the Vikings are set up to be a better team than they are. So that is disappointing that they're sitting at 1-3 through 4 weeks for me.
My biggest disappointment, I'm going to stay in the NFC East. It's the Washington football team's defense. I had this defense as a top 5 defense coming in the NFL, coming into the year, and it hasn't been nowhere near that. All this talk of this, front seven, one of the best in football at the end of last year, has completely gone the wrong direction. And their offense isn't, they've scored 100 points in 4 games. They're averaging 25 points a game, but they're giving up 30 points a game.
I think my
Yeah.
biggest is how good the Cardinals are. I was really hoping that they would be trash and I could rub it in, and they are a legit team, and that's a disappointment to me.
Yeah, I kind of gave a disappointment on the first one, I guess, by saying the Saints. So I thought you changed the question. I'm really giving one. I'll say biggest surprise is the Panthers at 3-1, and I pointed out in our group chat that they hadn't played the greatest offenses up until the Cowboys, and the Cowboys kind of exposed them a little bit, but their defense is still tough. That defense surprises me in Carolina. I think against most teams, they're going to keep them in games. And Sam Darnold, I said that Sam Darnold would be better. I didn't know Sam Darnold would be so much better. Sam Darnold has looked good the first 4 weeks. So that Carolina team, well, I'm not saying they're going to say they're a playoff team yet. I think they'll be in the mix come the end of the season. They're going to be right in that wild card fighting for a spot, I think.
Missing McCaffrey is huge, though. Like,
Yep.
that's a big piece. All right. In the essence of time, we need to cover at least one more thing. Kelsey and I are both out of the eliminator, thanks to the Jets and the Giants. So, Cody and Kai are still alive in the eliminator, fighting it out, mano y mano. So, give us, whoever wants to go first, give us your eliminator pick for week 5.
I'm taking the Buccaneers.
Kai is
At home against the Dolphins, I'm taking the Bucs.
Okay, well, I'm going to be the bigger man. That was my pick, but I am not going to let this week end not end because we picked the same team. So give me the Ravens against the Colts Monday Night Football.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think we're both going to be running it back next week. Next week, you can pick first.
Okay.
Kai, here's something interesting. Week 2, 3, 4, and now 5, you've picked teams whose mascot starts with a B. Browns, Broncos, Bills, and Bucks. I don't know why I just saw that, but
Killer bees.
That is a weird coincidence, though.
all righty. So you heard it here, Bucks and
I guess
Ravens.
next week, I got to pick the Bengals.
Well, I
Bears.
got to call you out though. I'm pretty sure your Stone Cold pick of the century didn't. It was kind of cold.
It was cold this week. 3-1 on the year.
3-1 on the year.
Hey, I don't lose 2 weeks in a row. So
Wait, what was it this week?
The
Vikings again.
Oh,
Did
riding that
not
train.
cover. Oh, we
All right,
meant to talk
Carl,
about this
can you give
last
our
week.
fans what they want?
Literally the last thing we need to talk about. Josh Gordon. Is that what you're going to say?
Oh no, that sounds good. He's activated.
What do our fans want?
I think he'll have limited role this week. I don't think he'll play more than 10 or 15 plays, to be honest. And they're not going to draw anything up for him, but he'll get out there and play some. The fans want to hear you say the Cardinals are a good team and they're going to make the playoffs.
A, it was one fan, and B, I already told him to kiss my ass. So,
Josh Gordon, great news for the Chiefs. Now they're going to score 50 while giving up 50 every game. Great pickup, great ad.
Defense?
Yeah, can he play safety? Can he take Sorensen's spot?
Here's the thing: all these Chiefs fans are mad because they didn't pick up anyone for defense. There's nobody to pick up for defense. If we could pick somebody up, we would. And two, I understand that everyone's upset about the defense, but also most teams can't score with us. So if we keep scoring, then it's not going to matter.
yeah, but you get to a Super Bowl scenario, and the Rams could
mattered.
score with you. The Cardinals could score with you.
It's already mattered twice this year.
But there's nobody. Well, it didn't. We gave the ball away 4 times against the Chargers, and we
that's
fumbled the ball
offense's
against the Ravens
fault, not
too.
the defense's fault.
So
Anyway,
that's why we picked up another receiver.
so I am not going to say the Cardinals are good and that I apologize. I'm not doing that. I put my hand up, said I was wrong on the Rams. I am still not wrong on the Cardinals. Mark it down. October 5th, 2021. I am still not wrong. You guys are just too early. You're going to hop off the bandwagon here in a couple
just
weeks.
like I am.
Anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You can watch it there. You can listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you prefer. We do appreciate all the support. Keep commenting. We like putting out the weekly power rankings because it's one of the things we get the most comments on. So, call us out on that. Or not really calling us out. You're just kind of commenting along. But we
crying
like
about your
that.
favorite team not being number one is what you're doing.
Yeah, you can get salty all you want, but when your team is a middle of the road team, I'm sorry, they're just a middle of the road team. But yeah, until then, be good out there. tell your grandma. 4th and 30 podcast is here to stay.